Mr. Subramaniam Jashankar, Foreign Secretary, Mr. Ari Godrej, Chairman, Godrej Group, Mr. Blaise Fernandez, CEO of Gateway House, Excellencies, distinguished guests, academics, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Let me first thank Gateway House and the Ministry of External Affairs for including Sri Lanka as a stakeholder of this first major geo-economic policy dialogue here in dynamic and progressive Mumbai city I've been visiting since 1997. I've seen this city move from where it was to where it is, and I see the foundations for it to move far beyond where it is today. I hope the seed that we sow today will bear fruit as both India and Sri Lanka move towards our foreign policy objectives by leveraging the hugely positive changes taking place in our neighborhood. President Pranab Mukherjee, then Finance Minister, delivering the Lakshman Kadirgama lecture in Colombo in late 2009, said, "The future of peace, security, and development of our region has to be fortified by common economic prosperity. The challenge today is to build interdependencies which not only integrate our region, but also create strong interest in each other's stability and prosperity." True then, now, and certainly into the future. In fact, it was Lakshman Kadirgama, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Sri Lanka, who forwarded the thesis that India and Sri Lanka should work together to build on our shared geography, history, and culture in a relationship he defined that should be in the state of irreversible excellence. I believe what he meant was that this relationship must benefit each other in their bilateral transactions and together must benefit both in transactions with others. So the mere fact that I'm here this evening is a big step in shaping the new paradigm of integrated economic diplomacy between us and beyond. Talking of economic diplomacy between our two countries, I hear that our Consul General in Mumbai is doing a pretty decent job on a day-to-day basis. Ladies and gentlemen, let us survey the context of today's engagement. Geopolitics meets business. While the GPS of our nations have remained static over millennia, on almost every other measure, the world's center of gravity is shifting towards the east. By 2030, Asia is projected to become the world's largest economic region. And by 2013, for the first time in modern history, Asian defense spending is estimated to have exceeded that of Europe. In this backdrop, Sri Lanka, as a small but increasingly more strategically important island in this emerging large and powerful Asian neighborhood, must determine the optimal navigational strategy in order to meet its macro objectives. In a speech given by our current Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mangala Samaravira, in Colombo last year, speaking on the new opportunities and risks associated with this changing landscape, he reiterated that change, however significant, would not alter our fundamental foreign policy objectives. Ensuring the security of all Sri Lankans and advancing their development will always be at the core of our government's duties in the foreign policy realm. Over the last few years, however, Sri Lankan foreign relations were not aligned to our country's needs. While the interest of a few were served, the needs of many were ignored. Our relations faced many challenges, ours, I mean between India and Sri Lanka, as you very well know. As we now reset our foreign policy, we are gearing our strategy and policies towards strengthening our relationship with India, harnessing the opportunities the Asian century has to offer, while navigating and minimizing the risks that will inevitably accompany her rise. In this context, it is most important to understand the relations between Sri Lanka and India in our engagement with the region from our vantage point. Both ancient history and contemporary experience suggest that Sri Lanka's success depends on maintaining friendly and intimate ties with India. India is our closest neighbor, the world's fastest growing large economy, the most populous democracy, our largest source of tourists, and the people with whom we share such strong ancient and contemporary civilizational ties. At the same time, our ability to integrate with the region while maintaining a strong and healthy relationship with the subcontinent has always paid rich dividends. I like to go back to the thinking of Minister Samaravira to seek an answer to what is meant by region. Is Sri Lanka a South Asian nation, or is it an Indian Ocean country? Throughout its ancient history, Sri Lanka had close links with the entire Indian Ocean rim, spanning from Africa, the Arabian Gulf, Persia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Australia. A classic example is the reign of the much adored King Parakramabahu the Great from 1153 to 1186. Many of whom you may have visited Sri Lanka may have visited a place called Polonnaruwa, from where he reigned. The chronicle Chulavamsa and other chronicles, along with the archaeological excavations, provide ample evidence of our engagements with the Indian Ocean countries and beyond. Ships had come from these countries to Sri Lanka filled with numerous products. They had been stockpiled and resold to traders who had visited the island from various other parts of the world, giving rise to substantiated speculation that Sri Lanka was an important entrepot trading center at that time. Coins issued by the monarchs of China, Cambodia, Persia, Middle East, Egypt, and Greece had been found almost throughout the country, relating to this period, signifying the trade relations he would have had at the time. The fact is that Sri Lanka, geographically located in the center of the Indian Ocean and sitting astride the major east-west and south-south trade routes, is at the crossroads of the Indian Ocean world. However, over time, we had become classified as a South Asian country, and our own imaginations and those of others turned towards the Indian hinterland. But once again, in the current context, in a comparative sense, we are also the exception to the South Asian identity. Reclaiming our Indian Ocean identity beyond South Asia, which we are now engaged in, will help us and others unlock the tremendous opportunities Sri Lanka possesses for mutual benefit in creating the new reality in the emerging Asian century. Sri Lanka, I believe, should be looked at in that light when discussing the various topics by Indian policymakers and business people during the course of this dialogue. Such an outcome will help create larger markets to increase trade and foreign investments, open the economies to the outside world, enhance the credibility of national reforms and policies, provide an opportunity to strengthen common positions at international fora, and help to reduce or resolve interstate conflicts. Efforts to develop our region should not be considered solely as a means to accelerate economic growth, but also as an effective mechanism to address broader socioeconomic and environmental issues facing the region. In moving the agenda forward, we are now working with new vigor. We have begun to put in place policies to improve our trade to GDP ratio, which had fallen by almost half in the last decade or so. This is something most people don't know, that the policies that the previous government followed essentially brought exports to GDP down from 35% to 15%, which we are certainly committed to turn around and take to a far higher double-digit figure. Removing trade barriers, promoting free trade agreements, and generally tilting the economy towards the production of more tradable goods and services have already begun. As most of you are aware, India and Sri Lanka entered into a structured trade framework since December 1998 with signing of the Sri Lanka-India Free Trade Agreement. The agreement has produced results over the years despite some areas of contention due to lack of proper understanding and adjustment of the basic concept for overall trade. We hope that the contentious issues can be sorted out soon and the Economic and Technical Cooperation Agreement, or ETCA, between our two countries can become reality soon, which will open new opportunities in trade, in services, and much needed investments. We are in the process of deepening our free trade agreement with Pakistan. We are also negotiating a free trade agreement with China. The agreements with China, India, and Pakistan will give us preferential access to a market of almost 3 billion people, certainly a rare, if not a unique, selling point. We are also exploring the possibility of signing agreements with several other countries, including Singapore and Turkey in the near term. In addition, we are assessing the merits of seeking to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership in time to come. Already, Indian business understands the value of using the ports of Colombo, both sea and air, and we are in the process of adding capacity to both. In the recent past, 70 to 80% of TEUs handled by the Colombo port was transshipment to India. And I was talking to Mr. Godrej earlier where he said, and something I hadn't been thinking about, is that perhaps that transshipment, or in other words, production can happen in Sri Lanka for southern Indian states, as opposed to producing in India and transporting down to some of the southern Indian states. With liberal air connectivity between the two countries and 120 weekly flights, Sri Lankan Airlines earns 40% of its revenue from these routes. So the possibilities for India and Sri Lanka will become endless as we become the Indian Ocean hub, with equidistance between the West and the Far East. That opportunity between Singapore and Dubai for so long in the modern times had been underutilized. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish all participants fruitful deliberations for a prosperous regional engagement that is mutually beneficial. I thank Gateway House and the Ministry of External Affairs for having invited me. It's been a pleasure addressing you all. Thank you very much.